Welcome back, everyone. I'm absolutely thrilled to have you here for another explainer. Today, we're literally looking behind the curtain of human behavior. I mean, have you ever felt like you were suddenly convinced of something without quite knowing how it happened? Well, trust me, you're not alone. We are constantly swimming in these invisible forces that shape our everyday decisions, from what we buy to how we vote to even what we believe. Today, we're going to take those invisible forces and we're going to make them visible.
Which brings us to a rather uncomfortable question. Are your choices really yours? It kind of makes you squirm to think about, right? I mean, we all love to believe we're fiercely independent thinkers, just completely autonomous in our decision-making. But as we pull back the layers in today's explainer, we're going to see that this autonomy, well, it's often an illusion. Get ready because we're about to have our very own matrix reveal and understand exactly how our reality is being shaped by the people and messages around us.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Here's our roadmap for today. We're going to start broad with the forces around us, then look at the levels of social influence. From there, we'll get into the mechanics of persuasion, Aristotle's timeless trio, and finally bring it all home with real-world persuasion tactics. All right, part one, the forces around us. Let's take a macro view and really understand the broad scope of social influence. So, what exactly is social influence? Simply put, it's the ways people influence the attitudes, values, beliefs, feelings, and behaviors of others. What I really want you to take away from this is that it isn't just about someone barking orders at you. Actually, scratch that. It's way more subtle. It's the constant, inescapable reality of human interaction. Every single time we engage with society, our values and feelings are being subtly shaped by the presence and actions of the people around us. And this list right here brilliantly illustrates just how dynamic that influence really is. It can be totally conscious or completely unconscious. It might be a brief, fleeting moment, or it could literally last a lifetime. Notice, too, that it can be positive or negative. You see, influence isn't inherently good or bad. It's simply a tool. It's a psychological mechanism operating on a massive spectrum. And crucially, its effect varies a ton from person to person. Some of us are just naturally more susceptible to it than others, and that's totally normal. Moving right along to part two, levels of social influence. Now we're zooming in just a little bit, peeling back the layers to see exactly how deep this influence penetrates our psychology. The psychologist Herbert Kellerman actually identified three main forms of influence. First up, there's internalization. Now this one is deep. This is when you adopt an idea so fully that it aligns perfectly with your very own value system. It becomes a part of you. Then there's compliance. This is much shallower. You're basically just following the rules because of explicit pressure or maybe fear of punishment. But the third one, identification, this one is absolutely fascinating. This is changing your attitude simply because you like the person influencing you. Think about it for a second. When was the last time a celebrity endorsement convinced you to buy a specific brand of shoes or, say, a new phone? That right there, that's identification at work. Now, let's look at how this builds into broader social behaviors. We honestly mix up conformity and obedience all the time, but there's a really clear distinction here. Conformity is following existing norms or rules, and get this, the pressure can be entirely imaginary. You conform simply because you don't want to stand out from the crowd. Obedience, on the flip side, is following direct orders under extreme external pressure. Oh, and beyond these two, there's also imitation. That's a form where we just follow someone without any external pressure at all. We just copy what we see in front of us. Which brings us to part three, the mechanics of persuasion, the targeted attempt. We're shifting gears now from that broad, everyday influence into something much more deliberate. So, persuasion. By definition, it's an active attempt to change another person's attitudes, beliefs, or feelings, usually via some form of communication. The key difference to remember, while social influence can happen completely accidentally or unconsciously, persuasion is always intentional. Someone or some organization is using communication to deliberately target and alter your mind. It's a highly targeted mission. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how this mission is divided into two completely different battlegrounds. On one side, we have systematic persuasion. This is slow, calculating, and it appeals directly to your logic and reason. It's all about giving people the facts. But on the other side, we have heuristic persuasion. This totally bypasses the heavy thinking and leverages quick, reactive habits or raw emotion. And spoiler alert, most of the media we consume today relies heavily on heuristic persuasion. To really grasp how we process these persuasive messages, we have to look at attribution theory, basically how we explain the causes of behavior. We generally use dispositional attribution, pointing to someone's internal motives, or situational attribution, pointing to their external environment. And it highlights a pretty funny quirk of human psychology. Think about it. When we make a mistake, we almost always use situational attribution. You know, the sun was in my eyes, or the pavement was totally uneven. But when someone else makes a mistake, boom, dispositional attribution. They're just a clumsy person. Persuaders absolutely know this, and they frame their messages to trigger the exact attribution they want you to feel. Okay, we definitely can't talk about persuasion without mentioning classical conditioning. This is all about leading someone to take action by connecting a product with positive emotions, rather than giving them direct commands. Advertisers are absolute masters at this. I mean, they won't explicitly tell you to buy the soda. Instead, they'll just show you images of happy, beautiful people laughing on a sunny beach holding that soda, over and over again. They repeat the message until your brain automatically connects their product with a positive feeling. You buy it because it feels good, not because you were commanded to. And that brings us to the elaboration likelihood model, which shows the two different routes a persuasive message can travel through your brain. The central route requires deep, focused thought. You are actively evaluating the pros and cons to see if it supports your values. It takes mental energy. But the peripheral route, that is mediated entirely by how attractive or flashy the source of the communication is. If the speaker is super charismatic, or if the video just has really high production value, your brain takes that peripheral shortcut and just agrees with a message to save energy. It's wild, right? All right, let's step back in time for part 4, Aristotle's timeless trio, the ancient code that still governs all these modern theories today. Over 2,000 years ago, Aristotle figured out that a truly successful, perfectly balanced persuasive argument relies equally on these 3 foundational elements. Logos is your systematic logic, the facts and the evidence. Ethos is the trust, reliability, and ethics of the speaker, kind of like that peripheral attractiveness we were just talking about. And pathos? That's the emotional core, the classical conditioning side of things. If you want to persuade anyone of anything, or maybe more importantly, if you want to spot when someone is trying to persuade you, you've got to look for the balance of these 3 slices. Now for the final piece of the puzzle. Part 5, real-world persuasion tactics. We're zooming all the way into the micro level to navigate the matrix and reveal the specific, everyday tactics used to execute these psychological theories. Before any tactic can actually work, it needs an enabler. Think of these as the necessary fuel that makes an active attempt at persuasion successful. We're talking about things like peer pressure, the sheer charisma of the speaker, an existing power dynamic like a master-servant relationship, the actual rational content of the message, and of course, the presentation itself. These enablers basically grease the wheels for the principles of influence to take hold. So the crucial point here is how these principles actually play out in your daily life. Take obligation. Someone does you a favor and you instantly feel psychologically bound to return it. Or imitation. When we're unsure in a new situation, we literally just blindly copy what others are doing. Then there's peer pressure, which pushes us into behaviors we wouldn't normally choose, like picking up smoking. And finally, lowballing, deliberately offering a lower price to get you committed, only to reveal the hidden costs later. These aren't just random, annoying everyday experiences, folks. They are highly calculated psychological mechanisms in action. But perhaps the absolute most brilliant tactic of all is the foot in the door technique. It is so ridiculously simple, but undeniably effective. Step 1. The persuader asks for a tiny, almost insignificant favor. Just a small yes. By getting that first yes, they have systematically lowered your defenses and built a pattern of agreement. So, when they immediately hit you with step 2, the much larger favor they actually wanted all along, you are statistically far more likely to say yes again. Why? Because you've already committed to being the kind of person who agrees with them. It's a real game changer. Well, we have definitely covered a lot of ground today, from the broad, invisible forces of social influence down to the precise, calculated mechanics of targeted persuasion. We've effectively looked at the matrix. So I'll leave you with this. Knowing the mechanics of persuasion, are you the influencer or the influenced? The next time you make a choice, buy a product, or even agree to a simple favor, I challenge you to look for those invisible strings. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer today, and I'll catch you in the next one.